the battle was over before the game was done. Now if you think that I'm gonna let you run my body, my heart, and my mind, then you better. Boom shakalaka, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters around the world. It is your chocolate Nubian soul brother, yours truly, the esoteric noetic, aka Christial, aka the Bitcoin MC. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have George Samuels waiting ever so patiently, about to go online for this podcast. I've been trying to get this guy for a few weeks now. Had some difficulties the first time, but everything is set and ready to go. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get straight into it. Boom shakalaka. All right, all right, all right. I'm excited. This should be an interesting one. All right, all right.
Hello.
George, I can't see anything. Smile for me, brother. Smile for me. Perhaps it's pitch black and we need some... there we go. How you doing, brother?
I had my cover thing on.
It's good to see your face again. I know the last time we tried this, some technical issues on my side, but look, I've straightened everything out, and I got the computer automatically saving every 15 minutes, so in the event that my system does crash, we'll be able to pick it right up and get straight into this. Samuel, George, Sam, what do you call yourself, man? Do we call you the Bitcoin prophet? Do you have like a call sign or something?
Shit. I mean, they're just names, you know? I mean, okay, so Bitcoin preacher started off as a joke. Definitely not a prophet, but yeah, Bitcoin preacher was started out as a joke, and then it became a running thing. So yeah, George Satoshi Samuels is the formal name that I use on social media, and then Bitcoin Preacher. If you want to use that, feel free to.
Bitcoin Preacher it is. I like that name because, and I heard you mention this in one of your videos, that I think you stopped using it for a bit because of the whole religious theme involved in it. And I wanted to talk about the religious side of Bitcoin, because it does seem as if there is this religious undertone, the way in which people support their coin, regardless of whatever evidence you put to the fore. Even the way in which the forks seem to have taken place, and the fact that they've broken into these denominations similar to the Christian denominations like Lutheranism, Pentecostalism, and what are your thoughts? Do you think Bitcoin has become a bit religious?
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you look at the history of like many of the world's most organized groups of people, there's religion and then there's organized religion. Right. If you look at organized religion from a sociological perspective as well, Bitcoin it's already starting to show signs of those sort of organization being required. And, you see that with sort of how Blockstream has taken, Bitcoin down the path for BTC. And then you've got Bitcoin Cash, which kind of took the path of Protestantism, right? So
why would you say Protestant? Why would you say Protestantism?
Well, wasn't that you had the Catholic Church, right? Which was kind of like the biggest power that took the Christian religion. If you looked at Bitcoin being the Christian faith, we're just using Christianity as an example, right? Then BTC is essentially the Catholics. Blockstream Core are the Catholics, right? They took their version or their vision of Bitcoin, whatever that is, and have taken it down that path. And because they've had the sheer numbers, right, to date, and they were able to just leverage off of the momentum, they've taken it down a different direction without people realizing that it's not really what the original Bitcoin was meant to be, just like the original Christianity, if you want to look at it that way as well. I like to think that the further you look into the past, the further you can see into the future, right? So if you look at the history of religion, civilization, the rise and falls, everything that's happening and transpiring right now is creating the narrative. And you can also learn from the past, right? And actually see what's about to happen just by looking at the past. So everything that is happening right now, people are kind of, squabbling and debating with each other, not really seeing the forest from the trees, and yeah, the Protestantism, I think that was, the original, I think they were the original first fork. I could be wrong.
No, but I hear what you're saying, and I think it makes a lot of sense. One of the themes that I've seen between what's happening with Bitcoin and religion is when you see something becoming popular, when you see something reaching this mass hive consensus, this collective consciousness, so to speak, I find that you tend to lose the individual. I mean, I found just watching what's been going on with Bitcoin is it's reached a point now where there is so much talk from the crowd. There is so much of a strong collective, I guess, consciousness within the Bitcoin community that you don't see you don't see individuals really allowing themselves to think. I mean, you find people, when I say that, what I mean by that is that I'm seeing more and more often people just buying into what the general crowd are saying as opposed to trying to figure things out for themselves. And I feel like Bitcoin started off as this small thing. It had radicals, people that would think for themselves, very individualistic, very libertarian-like. And over the last few years, as it's become bigger, as we've reached millions and millions of people, it's taken on this this generic thing where people, more often than not, I see people just picking a coin and saying the same stuff that everyone else is saying, not understanding why they like that particular coin, as opposed to thinking for themselves. And like I guess I'm just curious to hear, like you've obviously been in this for a long while, and have you seen the changes as far as the crowd changing from thinking for themselves to, I guess, just following what everyone else is doing?
Yeah, and I think you definitely saw more of it when 2017 hit, because it's kind of natural when you see the masses start to adopt. And mind you, we're still less than 3 to 4% of the world. So when we're saying the masses, we're talking about the well-off masses, all right? The ones who, can afford and, live relatively comfortably. They were kind of the first early adopters. But yeah, just looking at that, it's not too dissimilar to how momentum takes place. Like while you were talking, I was thinking of, and I can't remember which book this was from, but the analogy that was made was, what happens with human beings is, like with any movement, it starts with an idea and an individual, right? Then you get more people come on board, and it gains momentum. But then it hits a point where it's like, if you're in a crowd, if you have one person clap, you'll hear that clap. And then if you have more people join in, over time, all of the claps, even though they're different claps, they all just come into unison and sound like one, right? And that's essentially what's happening with BTC, Bitcoin as well, is that overarching narrative that has kind of given way, the loudest sound, that becomes the unison sound, right? So that's where that will shape what we hear, what we perceive. And I'm always very mindful for even those of us who like to think that we are free thinkers and think for ourselves, that we also have to be mindful too of our biases in seeing, BTC as the other, and then we only see the other, like the opposing views, and that's why we think that that's the only view we see, right?
Absolutely.
I don't know if you've heard of the famous double slit experiment in quantum physics, right?
Sure.
Same thing, when we look through a certain lens, we will construct a certain reality. So even though you and I probably both do see a lot of that same narrative or speak coming out of a BTC side, I don't discount that there are some free thinkers who have thought for themselves, but have just decided to side with BTC side.
Sure. I guess the distinction to me is, more often than not, when I read the comments that have been made by BCH supporters, I can see that these people have done their research. They've actually gone and tried to understand the history of Bitcoin. I've actually read the white paper. And look, this is understandably going to happen because the majority of people, they're obviously going with what's most popular. You do find the majority, I'd say only maybe 1% of people in this movement are actually really interested in what's going on along the lines of coding or trying to be active within the community, and then the majority of people are just obviously looking at this as an investment. And because there are so many of these people that are kind of just going with the mass hive clap narrative, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of them haven't really done much research and are just taking on what everyone else has been saying. And when I read their comments, I can see this, that, oh, okay, so why is Bitcoin Cash Bcash, and why is it crap? Because Roger Ver is a fraud. I mean, how is Roger Ver a fraud? What? It always comes down to the fact that they've heard it from someone, and it usually comes down to the fact that everyone else is saying it. Everyone knows it's true, so it must be true, as opposed to people in BCH that have, I find more often than not, and I'm not saying this is always the case, but I do find that because they tend to be more of the, not as mainstream, people that have actually taken this non-mainstream path have done their research. They have a reason and understanding as to why they picked this particular coin. And that in of itself makes them more individuals as opposed to people that are just going with a narrative. But, I mean, one of the, I guess one of the issues that I think we're all open to, Bitcoin Cash, every coin, is having this fork take place, having the majority hijack the vision. And I'd like to get your thoughts on how maybe we can avoid some of the same pitfalls that happened to Bitcoin happening to BCH, as far as I guess trying to have the real vision maintained within the community, as opposed to having it kind of get sidetracked. I mean, what are your thoughts in avoiding that?
Yeah, there are pros and cons to everything. So one of the things that may be seen as a downfall is human beings, we seem to be wired to always look towards a leader, right? So with almost every other coin, there is a single person that you can direct your attention to for guidance in terms of the direction. Satoshi very intentionally wanted the idea to be stronger than the individual person, right? And I think this is probably one of the biggest strengths that isn't always talked about for Bitcoin, and why I think Bitcoin will be, the single currency of the world. And it may change form, right? And when I say change form, that, whether it's BTC or BCH, whatnot, but the reason for that is because there is no single head. And that the dark side of that is it brings a lot of chaos. It brought about Blockstream, right? And if you look at the history of the Catholic Church too, people who like control and order, if there's nobody leading or guiding, they feel almost a sense of responsibility to step in and lead.
Sure.
In the absence of another. But at the same time, for legacy purposes, for long-term purposes, when those authorities die or are removed, what then happens to the masses or the people? They end up feeling lost, right? And so that's why I think, even though it's a bit chaotic right now, the self-organization and the decentralization is definitely a good thing. And it's... Oh, wait, what was the original question, so I can tie back?
Well, I guess I was asking how we address some of the issues that have taken place with Bitcoin. As far as, I mean, to me, I think the biggest issue is just the education aspect. I mean, people not understanding, and not to say that I understand, I barely understand anything, but in regards to the direction of Bitcoin, I guess the issue is that people always have different visions in regards to where they think something should go. And I guess that is, in a way, the beauty of Bitcoin, in that if people don't align with the original vision, they can always fork off. It's just when they fork off thinking that their vision was the original one, when it's actually a new kind of fork, which is what has happened to Bitcoin.
Yeah, Bitcoin Cash. Yeah, so that's and that's been the argument for a lot of folks who really passionately hate Bitcoin Cash, is that at least Bitcoin Private and Bitcoin Gold, all of them, they forked off and they have their name, but they aren't trying to say that they are the original Bitcoin, right? And I can see that argument. I can see the validity of that argument. But at the same time, what they don't realize is that you essentially all those early adopters from Bitcoin, the ones who are really passionate about the original vision, I guess they have had enough momentum and influence and the wherewithal to actually make it possible for Bitcoin Cash to be the Bitcoin. And I think the reason why they fight for it is because there's already so much leverage momentum over 8 years, right? Of groundwork that's done. And then for someone like Blockstream to just come in and do what it did, that really pissed off, a lot of people too. So it's definitely a battle that is going to form the overarching narrative for many, I think, decades or centuries, right? People will look back and see this. This will make for a very good story.
I was thinking the same thing. I think what's happened over the last few years has all the elements of a Greek tragedy. I mean, in regards to the Satoshi story, in regards to the fork, this division, it has all of these elements that I think when this story finally unfolds in how many years or so, I feel like people are going to be looking back in this time the same way that we look back in ancient Rome and hear about these figures like Julius Caesar and all, Marcus Aurelius and all of these figures and be looking at them in awe, because I truly believe that what's going on right now is one of the most exciting things, because there's so many elements of philosophy, technology involved in this thing. I think for someone like myself that is really interested in, I guess, world-changing events, what is going on in Bitcoin right now is at the heart of everything, from the financial aspect to the philosophical aspect. There's a huge libertarian movement involved, and I guess I'm curious from what's your drive to, what's your interest in Bitcoin? What's motivated that? Where have you come from? Because I know that you're an entrepreneur. You're obviously involved in a lot of different things. What's your background? Yo, George, I've lost you there. Your sound, are you still there? Your sound came up a little. I think it's on your side. Let's see if we can get this back running. I'm pretty sure it's definitely from your side, man.
Hello, can you hear me?
There we go. That's better. You cut off there a bit. That's all good. You were saying?
Yeah. It's like, no, we're not having this happen again.
No, you're here. It's just the sound. It's I think you faded out a little there. I'm not sure if it was my side or your side, but I got you back now. So you were saying?
Yep. Sorry, could you repeat the question again?
I guess I'm curious as to how you got involved in Bitcoin.
Yep.
I mean, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself. I should have probably introduced you. You're.
That's all.
But I'll let you take lead with I guess how you came into Bitcoin.
Yeah, sure. So how I came into Bitcoin, it was back in 2013. I was asked to be part of the Bitcoin doco, which was directed by Atmat in Melbourne, who's a very strong Satoshi Bitcoin supporter. She introduced, I think, one of Australia's first Bitcoin ATMs into the co-working space that I was working at the time. Was a community manager for Hub Australia. And it was really cool. Like the idea, the concept of Bitcoin was really cool. There were walking tours taking place in Melbourne that Atmat in Melbourne conducted. Very grassroots, very underground, community at the time. Meeting up in shady alleyways and bars and stuff. To exchange Bitcoin for fiat and whatnot. And I think, I've always been fascinated by community. So I really found the Bitcoin community itself to be very passionate and, really you could see that they were really interested in changing the world, and the concept back then just really fascinated me. Now, so the Bitcoin doco was also a documentary that featured Craig Wright. So that's how I came to know Craig Wright back then. And for I think about a year or two, I was involved in a very light manner. Had converted, some money into Bitcoin back then. But then it went off. I went off the radar with Bitcoin up until about 2015-16, and then I started hearing about Bitcoin again, and I was like, I should reach out to Atmat in Melbourne, see where things are at. And that's what got me back into it, because I just felt like, I'm feeling some momentum here. Let me explore this further. And the original Satoshi white paper and the vision just captured me back then. And so to me, it was just like, it was a no-brainer. Like, it made sense, but also waited, I think, to see, okay, does this have legs? Because nobody thought that it would get to where it is now, except for, of course, those people who were, like Roger Ver and whatnot, who were just like willing it into existence and reality. So yeah, 2015, 16 came back in, then got more involved. Then 2017 happened. Knew about the hard fork that was taking place. I was a very strong BTC supporter, and then I think when I learned that Atmad in Melbourne had made her move to convert everything over to BCH, I was like, whoa, she's going all in, and she was somebody I trusted as well. And did my research, and I was like, yeah, she's onto something here, even though it was kind of against what everybody else was saying about Bitcoin at that point in time.
What was everyone else saying at the time? And
BTC is never going to die. Yeah, BTC is never going to die, and like BCH is like an abomination, and it's like, okay, good luck, your little pet project of BCH, good luck with that. And so it also kind of then I made the move as well to convert all my BTC to BCH all in. And then other people who trust me were like, whoa, what the hell? Why are you doing that? Because you're a strong Bitcoin supporter. I'm like, I still am. But what's going on? So yeah, then, all the events that unfolded made other people believers. And I think it was more for people who didn't really research the technology. It was the price movement, right? Of course, that made them believers, even if temporarily. But I was on the side of, it's the vision. To me, all value comes from vision. And it's like, if there's a strong vision and enough belief from everybody around it, like, it will happen. It's just inevitable.
I feel the same way. But you say that, I'm curious though, because you said the main reason that you shifted all your BTC coins to BCH was the woman that you trusted at the time had made the decision to do so. And I'd imagine you would have done some research. Or was the fundamental reason you moved your coins was that I trust her, she knows what she's doing, or I trust passionate people, or was it, okay, I've done the research and this makes sense?
Yeah, she was kind of, okay. So what prompted is, I had done my research before, right? But then when she made her move, it made me go, huh? Like, it was kind of like the final, like,
Sure.
Like I was already leaning towards, but then when she did that, I was like, okay, like that's a very interesting move. And at this point in time, and it confirmed what I was thinking already,
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, definitely trust, I think, still plays a factor, even though Bitcoin is supposed to be trustless. This is why you have from a social standpoint, trust still matters. This is why we see other people in that narrative on the BTC camp side, is that people they trust, or you trust, if they feel a certain way, most of the time you'll be like, oh yeah, I feel that way as well. But if you are an independent thinker, you'll acknowledge that, but do your research as well, right?
That's a really interesting point.
Very important.
Yeah, I actually listened to an interview with Craig Wright just recently. I think it was from it was set in England, but they covered a very important related topic. One of the interviewer made the point that, granted, he understands that Bitcoin Cash is, let's say, better in every way. I think Craig Wright was making the argument that, look, in the next few months, he's going to be applying all of these different technologies, patents onto the Bitcoin Cash coin, and eventually it's going to be doing everything better. And this guy made the argument that, look, it's the people that are associated with BCH that makes him not want to trust it. Even though he understands that, technically speaking, the Bitcoin Cash may be better, there is still this very strong element of, I trust certain people and I don't trust certain individuals. Even though you and I, and most people that understand how Bitcoin works, understand that it's a trustless system. It doesn't matter the fact that Roger Ver is investing his money in Bitcoin Cash. Yep. Roger Ver has no real definitive control over Bitcoin Cash. He has influence, just like anyone that has money has influence. But even when people understand that, it always seems to come down to, I don't trust Roger Ver because I think Roger Ver is a fraud. I don't trust Craig Wright because blah 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 blah. And it's interesting, like from what I've heard from you, I think even you, and I think I would, if I'm being honest, still has that aspect of, I need to trust people in order to trust something, even though that something is not dependent on whether people give it support, if you know what I mean. Yeah,
for sure. And it's a very natural social thing to occur. And, even when the person I trusted made that move and then I made that move, it was still against what everybody else was. It wasn't a majority sort of mindset. Like, that made no sense to a lot of other people, right? But to those who were in the space, like, it didn't make sense, and this is that early adopter thing as well. But that is one of the aspects that maybe Satoshi didn't think about. I feel like he did still. And I think it's more of a long-term game, because if you think about it, right, for now, because it's the focus has been a lot around the technology, it's being treated like a startup. And you see all these other ICOs, they got startups attached and yada, yada, yada. Whereas a decentralized nature, over time, I think it will matter less. Because, and this is why even at the Bitcoin Cash Fund, so for those listening as well, I'm the senior community manager for the Bitcoin Cash Fund by night. We, our focus is on the global adoption, right? So it's 1 billion within 5 years. I think Craig and Enchain are looking at 5 billion in 5 years, which is crazy, but it's still doable with the right will.
So just to interject for a sec, so the Bitcoin Cash Fund, its focus is on bringing about adoption globally. And
accelerating. So we're kind of like a marketing department for Bitcoin Cash, and not in a like a.
Oh yeah, I've seen some endorsements. Yeah, on YouTube. The one with the kid having the kid's dad having the haircut, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, good stuff. So you're behind a lot of that stuff.
Yes,
that's awesome.
So that's, we're wanting to stay positive, to stay as neutral as possible. I know it's not always possible to do that, but we do our best to be that. The founder Paul, he saw a gap, for a Bitcoin Cash in terms of it not having any sort of central marketing coordination, and it's funny because whenever you use the word central or decentralized in Bitcoin, in the Bitcoin community, you almost have to be very careful. But it's like yin and yang. Like, Bitcoin was created not because of centralization, but extreme centralization, right? It was an answer to that. So just like extreme decentralization is also not a good thing either, which is what can happen to Bitcoin if enough users keep harking on about it's like everything needs to be decentralized. It's like, no, remember, look at the history again, what it was in response to. You can't just say this decentralization and go extreme on that side, because then, well, extreme of anything never turns out good, right?
Absolutely.
So for the Bitcoin Cash Fund, it is just kind of helping and assisting to accelerate the global adoption. And a big focus is on merchant adoption. So tying this back to what Craig was talking about, what we were talking about earlier, is that over time, it will not matter too much about these influencers, because once all these other merchants have adopted Bitcoin Cash, then it becomes easy to use as an electronic peer-to-peer cash system, right? It won't matter. It's just like right now when people drug lords and criminals use cryptocurrency, so therefore I do not use cryptocurrency. They use fucking cash too, do you not use cash because, drug lords use it? No.
Because that's a perfect example. Yeah, the kind of things that people often say without thinking it through. They just make arguments because I think they're repeated so much in the mainstream news that people just repeat them. Bitcoin Cash is for fraudsters. Well, okay, why is it for fraudsters? You realize that can be used with the US dollar, which is the currency that the most amount of fraud is used to commit. And you realize that people are just repeating things over and over again. Going back to your background, just a bit more detail on that. I think the last time we spoke, I wanted to cover this again because this was really interesting. You were talking about how you've obviously been brought up in a lot of different countries, and it's interesting because I think that's shaped how you look at things and how you think. And I think you used, I can't remember what word it was that you used. I used the word global citizen, but essentially you're the kind of person that believes in a global world. Essentially, obviously, Bitcoin Cash is something that facilitates that. So perhaps you can speak a bit about your upbringing and how, I guess, that's shaped your perspective and in community and the world.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, global citizen or third culture kid, TCK. That was the other term. If you haven't heard of it before, just Google it. Third culture kid. Essentially, it's where you're born in one country, your parents are born from two other countries, but then raised in a third. That's typically, and you usually can identify a third cultured kid when you ask them the question, "Where are you from?" and they struggle to answer. Because they've lived in so many different places or been exposed to so many different places that they don't actually they don't feel like they are from any one country. They feel like they are literally at home on earth anywhere, as long as there are good people around them, that get that. So that I think that upbringing has definitely made me desire a world where there was freedom to move that was not bound by nation states or nationhood, where you could still respect the countries that people were from, but really unite around the concept of a global citizen. Really be able to call Earth home, as opposed to I'm French and you're English and therefore we don't like each other because of our history. Because if you're somebody that has had an upbringing where you're constantly traveling, constantly being thrown into different cultures, you learn to respect all of them, because that you're not from there technically, but you have to learn how to communicate with them, work with them. So from that perspective, to me it was a no-brainer to have a global currency, because if you've done any traveling, when you have to exchange currencies with each country, it's one, annoying, and two, you're just come on, it's 2018. We've got planes and the internet and everything. The internet is definitely a good example of borderless, and yet we still have sort of archaic nation-based income taxes for stuff that gets transferred across the web without any of those type of concepts of an individual nation or country. So just the freedom of movement. Sometimes I wonder if the world really is was not built for the earth in that sense, right? For freedom of movement like that. They're the nomads. Everything is all about plonking down, maybe blame it on the agricultural revolution many centuries ago. But yeah, you just plunk down and you settle there and just decimate the land around you, whatever. Whereas if you travel, move around, it's a different type of freedom. So Bitcoin as cash, to me, is no different to having one internet. So you have one internet and one electronic cash system. To me, it makes sense for the times we live in. And
absolutely. And I think it promotes freedom, which to me, I mean, from my, I guess my background, it's very similar to yours. I was born in Ghana, West Africa. I've spent most of my time here in Australia. But I guess the overarching philosophy that has guided my life has been one of freedom. I believe in the idea of people being able to interact with other people around the world without restrictions, obviously open borders. I believe in, I guess, the whole concept of individual rights, and I think a lot of the BCH supporters, you find that they tend to have very similar values. You find that a lot of the first movers of Bitcoin were very libertarian in their mindset, and these are the kind of people that believe in freedom of movement, that believe in people having the right to do what they want with their own money, not having restrictions, not having governments tell them who they can exchange money with. And that whole perspective, the fact that I've adopted that, is something that attracted me to Bitcoin. Because even before I discovered Bitcoin, I was very much interested in the idea of separating economics from the state. And I would hear a lot of libertarians speak about this. Stefan Molyneux, Adam Kokesh. It's been a common thing within the libertarian movement because they value the importance of freedom. And I think it all ties down, like, if you want to, one of the reasons I think, and I've heard Craig Wright speak about this as well, that when you do have more freedom within a country, when you have these open borders, free exchange of money, it's going to create a better society as far as more competition. It's going to create more opportunities. And if you're someone that wants to see a progress in technology, a progress in the elevation of the standard of living, I think people tend to adopt this viewpoint. At least this is the kind of I guess libertarian mindset that a lot of people would have. So I was just curious to hear you speak about that, because I guess this is a little tangential, but I think one of the things that I found is that, like you were kind of saying, that people that do have this mindset or have been brought up in these circumstances, it does shape the way that they think. And I mean, I've been finding a lot of the arguments that people have been making on the BCH side of things to be very in line with promoting freedom, being very in line with people having individual rights. The way in which they, and I know this gets a little, I guess, it's not a definitive thing, but I do find even the way that a lot of the people within the Blockstream camp, the BTC camp, the way in which their philosophy when it comes to small blocks, that ties into their philosophy, which can be once again tied back into their upbringing. Like the philosophical distinction between the big block versus smaller block camp is something that's tangible, in that the arguments that I think are made by the small block proponents is that you need to ensure that you can't have the big bad government coming in and ruining this project, because you're going to have more centralization if you have a situation where people need to have really powerful computers in order to mine Bitcoin. And the whole argument is coming from a place of, we need to put in restrictions to prevent people from doing things so that we can have a safe community. It kind of leans towards safety, and I find that people that have more of a capitalist mindset do believe in competition, believe in the free market, believe in people having these freedoms, believing that it's going to create more competition, it's going to lead to a better society. So they're in favor of the big blocks. And it's just something that I've noticed, that where is this whole movement seems like it's purely technological, that it has nothing to do with values or philosophy. The more and more I learn about it, the more I'm realizing that there does seem to be a philosophy around this, and it is shaped by people's upbringing, people's, I guess, their experiences as well,
Yep. Spot on. So I'll probably give an example of it's like the nomads versus the farmers. There's a book that I really love, and I think it's called Wolf Totem. And it's about essentially the tension between China and Mongolia when China was occupying Mongolia. And the Mongolians, are very much a nomadic culture. And I don't know if you know too much about the Mongolian history, but, they were
Genghis Khan, right? Yeah, the conquerors of the world.
Yeah, they were the only empire to conquer half of the world in terms of landmass, right? But it's not always talked about in history books. There's a lot of focus on European history, American history, etc. But the Mongolian Empire, half. And you were talking about small blocks and big blocks, and to me, that's almost a reflection of the mindset. Big blockers, essentially, it's like an expansive mindset, right? And it's not the vision and the direction is not based on fear. It's based on hope for the future, right? And expansiveness. Whereas you look at the small blockers, there's no real vision. It's all about contraction and fear, safety from the big bad wolf outside. You use it like with the farmers, same thing, right? The farmers will put pens around the sheep, right? To keep them safe from the big bad wolf on the outside. Whereas the nomads, they're the ones on the outside, and they'll run wild with, the wolves, the bears, the everything. They are not restricted in terms of their freedom of movement. And I see that taking shape here as well. And I think also the reason why you'll see people like us or the global citizens, the TCKs, it's like where we believe in we're looking to build that new world, right? The old world is kind of what on the BTC side is being replicate it again. It's like they're trying to cling on to the old ways of doing things. So even with Lightning Network, they're just replicating what was already in place before, but wrapping it in a different wrapper, right? To me, that's what Lightning Network looks like. It's like same shit, different smell. Whereas on the BCH side, it really is going down a vision that is ready for those who want to embrace it, who believe in a kind of like one world, you know, or new world that is borderless, that is free to move. And you will see this, it's very Matrix-like, right? If you are ready, or if you are seeking the truth and you are ready to open your mind, free your mind, then you will embrace that. But if you are not, you will choose, you know, like even if you are made aware that you're a slave, you'll still choose to be a slave because of all the pleasures that it brings. Because it's very uncomfortable to take that red pill.
George, I can see why they call you the Bitcoin prophet or Bitcoin preacher, man. That was some powerful stuff, man. I really resonate with what you're saying, and it's essentially what I was trying to articulate as well. In fact, I thought about what Roger, I think, said a while back, that the BTC community believed that Bitcoin couldn't scale because... Yeah. I mean, therefore, it wasn't able to do it, you know, whereas the BCH community believed that Bitcoin could scale. So they've actually gone about and they are doing it, you know, and it's that kind of matrix mindset. There is no try. There's only do it. You know, the mindset of it can be done. We're going to do this. We believe we can do it. So we're going to do it. Yeah. And I think that's a powerful idea. And I think that's very reflective of the Bitcoin Cash community, the true Bitcoin, as I like to say. I want to get into your. You mentioned that it was during a documentary that you met Craig Wright, and I wanted to get into that. Surprisingly, I don't think I've seen the documentary. What was this documentary called?
The Bitcoin Doco.
Okay. Yeah, I'm surprised. I would have remembered your face, man. I'm gonna have to check it out. But so at this point, had Craig Wright come out as? Was this around the time where he essentially was outed, or was this beforehand?
I think he came out as Satoshi in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was before then. Okay. And yeah, and mind you, like it wasn't like we didn't meet in person. It's only like, you know, we just connected. Through knowing that we were in the same documentary.
Okay, so have you actually met him in person before, or has it all been online? So can you hear me?
Hello.
I can hear you. You can't hear me?
You're just kind of broken up on your end.
All right, let's see if we can fix that. I got you coming in over here. I think we're just getting a bit of disturbance. All right.
Good.
I've lost your video, but I can see your face now. Can you hear me?
All right. Yeah, I can hear you. I'll stop my video just so that we can keep the audio at least.
That would be cool. That'd be cool.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So you still here? All right. It's all good. You know what? It's all good, man. I think people. The audio is the main thing. That's the main thing. So yeah, just in regards to Craig Wright. I mean, during the documentary, what was he talking about? What was he? What was he? Why was he in the documentary? I mean, as far as his understanding of Bitcoin, what kind of information was he sharing in that documentary?
I mean, nothing different for what he's been sharing now. I mean, he's come out with more information around the technicals around Bitcoin. But back then, you know, it really was just like, what is Bitcoin? Why are you involved? What are you doing? Definitely worth checking out the Bitcoin Doco. And I think Matt in Melbourne, she had included a lot of minor stories as well, which was really fascinating. I think she included me from a co-working space because she connected sort of just the movement with open collaborative spaces to what was happening with Bitcoin as well, you know? And I think that ties in. Sorry, dude, are we still okay with audio?
Yeah, audio's coming in fine from my end. Everything's cool here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and you know, that I think just connects right back to what we were saying about that open, collaborative, and expansive aspect of Bitcoin, you know? And I think that needs to continue on. It literally is the split between like the old world and the new world. And those who, want to remain in the old world will cling on to anything that reflects that, and those who want to embrace the new one will move towards that. I think that's where the conflict is, because people are seeing two separate realities pretty much.
Well said, well said. I like how you bring in the philosophical, psychological side to this. I feel like it's an area of Bitcoin that hasn't been fully explored. And I'm guessing your interests obviously lie in the realm of history, philosophy. You seem to have a very learned attitude when it comes to breaking this kind of stuff down from a philosophical perspective.
Yeah, man. I love looking deeply into things, and sometimes I've been criticized for maybe looking too deeply into some stuff. But hopefully, now being in my 30s, I've been able to temper that. The philosophy, the sociology, the psychology, those aspects fascinate me the most out of all this, because you don't just have the technical, you don't just have the mathematics, but you've got the social aspect, because human behavior. One thing I've noticed is that technology is very rarely the issue. It's like the people and their interactions, their relationship with technology that usually is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all integrated. In fact, one of the things I find so beautiful about Bitcoin is that in order for this thing to work, the creator obviously had to have a profound understanding of all these different areas, the economics, the technology, the philosophical side of things even. And it goes on. And I think, as is clearly evident with someone like Craig Wright, I mean, this is a guy that has so many degrees behind him. I mean, he truly is a Renaissance man. And one of the reasons I've enjoyed, I've gone through all of pretty much everything I can find on Craig Wright. I first started off listening to a guy called Andreas Antonopoulos, and he is someone that has a very holistic understanding of things. I mean, he speaks about the technology, the security side of things, the philosophy, the economics, and goes on into all these different realms. And he paints this beautiful picture in regards to how Bitcoin is supposed to work. And really learned a lot listening to him. And then when I found Craig Wright, it was more or less the same thing. I would say even up a notch. And it's rare I find, in fact, I think I've heard of Craig Wright mentioning this, that in science, you often find that the scientific community has this expectation that people are going to be experts in one field. And not realizing, it's actually quite common for brilliant people to be brilliant in many other fields. You have a look at people like Leonardo da Vinci, you have a look at some of the greatest people. Pythagoras is another one, like the first universal genius, and they have been brilliant in many different things. And I think it's necessary in order to have a full understanding, to understand not just one particular field, but many different fields. And as is evident, I think that was necessary in creating the concept of Bitcoin.
Yes. I think that's one thing that I noticed too about what I was seeing happen between BTC and BCH is, BCH had more. If you look at the influencers, in my opinion, seem to have more of a holistic view of everything. Whereas on BTC side, they're either just coming from a developer perspective, or it seemed like very one angled, and you could see that take place in the arguments, right? And
absolutely.
One of the things I think that everyone should learn how to do is how to debate properly and assume or understand the context from which people are making their arguments, because everybody's trying to debate with facts and maths, right? But if you actually look at the background and the understanding of those individuals in the different areas, that actually does shape the direction that the arguments go. And so it's like when somebody starts off an argument, if you say, okay, from my perspective, blah 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 blah, right? But when you have these public debates take place on Twitter, and mind you, there's always misreadings taking place via text online. They're all stating it as fact from their perspective, right? And then it just becomes a battle of egos and wills, and then it kind of just goes nowhere as well.
I've noticed exactly the same thing, and I would just add to that, another thing that I'm finding that is even more prevalent from my experiences is the inclination from people on the BTC side, and I say this because this is the general way most people argue, whereas you find there's a particular way of arguing when you are a voluntarist, a libertarian, when you're dealing with ethics or things like that. And I've noticed people don't seem to argue from principle. People seem to argue from potentiality. For instance, if someone, I remember I got into a conversation with someone one time about Roger Ver, the fact that he had announced prior to the Mount Gox scenario that he believed in this organization, that he'd spent time and he trusted them, and he made the argument that Roger Ver was a fraud because he came out and said that this argument was trustworthy. And when I said to him that, well, look, just because Roger Ver said that the company was trustworthy and that happened, that obviously Mount Gox fell apart, doesn't mean that he's a fraud. And he made the argument, but the fact that he could have been involved somehow. I could have orchestrated that entire event. The potentiality for him to have orchestrated that was enough for him to be called a fraud. Whereas the way that I would look at something like that, unless of course I know definitively that someone has done something, I'm not going to call them a fraud. And you tend to argue from principle. And when I say that, what I mean by that is that you're not making appeal to potentiality arguments. For instance, because Bitcoin could be used as a legal currency, I'm not going to allow it. You know what I mean? That's a common argument you tend to hear from socialists, or the whole big block versus small block argument. Because Bitcoin could, if we use big blocks, because Bitcoin could be circumvented by the government, let's not use big blocks because of the possibilities, as opposed to making an argument that deals in certitudes. And just finally, even with the name Bitcoin, I kind of wanted to end this here because I want to hear your thoughts on this. I heard Craig Wright speak about this so eloquently. When people are trying to define what Bitcoin is, the common argument I found from people is that they define Bitcoin based off of the majority of what people define Bitcoin to be. And Craig goes on to say the Bitcoin has a protocol. It has certain criteria to define it. And he has it, and as it is defined within the white paper. And this whole idea of Bitcoin being whatever everyone deems it to be, I feel is the biggest distinction between how a lot of people within the BTC community look at Bitcoin, whereas someone like mine, I would imagine a lot of the BCH people look at it. I mean, clearly there's an issue at the moment in regards to how we define Bitcoin, but it must have a definitive definition. The idea of saying that it's going to be subject to however many people decide to define it, I think comes with a lot of problems. So what are your thoughts on the whole Bitcoin naming thing, and I guess how people look at that?
I mean, that is like literally the nature of our reality. It's a subjective reality. It's literally reflecting itself in this conflict between BTC and BCH, because you have there people saying, no, you said that, Bitcoin is permissionless. So that means I can make Bitcoin whatever I want it to be. And in a way, like Bitcoin Cash has done that too. Like we've also said, well, we're going to fork Bitcoin Cash and we say it's Bitcoin, right? I can see both sides to this conflict, this tension, but it's from a naming perspective. It doesn't make it easier for us. Like BCH gets so much flack because people feel like we're trying to steal the name. And a large majority don't know. They just look at the name. They don't know, obviously, much about the technicals. And I'm not speaking for everyone, but a large majority won't, give it any time or day. If anything, it's a drama that they perhaps just want to get involved with. Just like people love watching drama episodes or TV shows. This is a drama that, oh, hey, look, there's drama here. Let me, jump on the bandwagon and just call everybody that I come across in BCH an altcoin or a scam, or like you've seen the words that get thrown around so often, right? It like ceases to have any meaning now. When I hear it, I'm just like, okay, what do you mean by that? And what,
I had to look up the word scam because I kept on hearing it. I'm like, what? Are people using this in a different way that I use it? But I hear what you're talking about.
Yes. I mean, pretty much, right? Like anything, like they're literally calling everything a scam now, and it's like, fuck, you guys even know? And then the fraud aspect as well. I mean, people forget that, even Jesus Christ was like labeled a heretic and a criminal and all of those things. But now
there's the religious theme coming up once again. I mean, Jesus Christ, Bitcoin, Jesus, the undertones of this. But you brought up the fraud thing. I love it. I'm not sure if you've listened to this interview. If you haven't, be sure to check it out. Best interview Craig Wright has done to date. Really illustrated a lot of the arguments, like properly answered them within the mindset of what I would say like clear thinking. You know what I mean? And one of the things that he defined was fraud. How, from a legal standpoint, that involves taking money from someone like through deception. But people seem to use that term, like Roger's a fraud because he's calling Bitcoin something else, even though Bitcoin's open source. Like no one has any legitimate claim to the name, and it's just another thing that I found really ridiculous. People's inclination just to label things with any definition,
Yes, it's a reflection. I think it's a reflection of our times too, whereby we protest against anything now, and. There's also a lot of change happening, so it's like there are legitimate, in my opinion, there are legitimate changes and movements that need to be made, and that I'm glad are happening. But then some of the other ones that pop up, I'm just like, are you just protesting for the protest's sake? Are you just like throwing shit for throwing shit's sake? But that's a human family for you.
It's the whole, I'm on a team, and I'm gonna stick to my team regardless of what happens, Team BTC, Team BCH. And I really hope that we don't fall into that camp. I think it's good for us to be able to even criticize the arguments within our own community. Otherwise, you fall into the Church of Satoshi, the Church of whatever is popular camp, which I think we can do without.
Exactly, and it's funny because, even there was some debates between Craig and some academics online, and, other people... I started to see the splintering within BCH as well, and it really annoyed the shit out of me. But this is kind of what happens naturally because everybody has a different idea of what is right, what should be done. It's always on the hows. But I hope we can learn from BTC, and it looks like that's died down a bit. But whenever influencers get involved and debate with each other online, I mean, everybody's going to see it, of course.
That's
but
true.
Yeah, it's something that we cannot avoid, but we have to kind of watch and try to maneuver to the best of our abilities. But in the long run, like I am betting on the actual cash system itself of BCH, right? Just proving itself and sustaining itself in a way that Bitcoin was brilliantly designed through the forking aspect, because it's preserved itself. We believe from the BCH side, it's preserved itself in spirit through BCH, and then the body, you could call that BTC, right? People on that side are saying that is the real Bitcoin because it still has the body, and it goes back again to the philosophical question: Are we spiritual beings in a physical body having a physical experience, or the opposite? And that's how I see it.
Salient words. I like the idea that whereas this stuff is inevitable, you're always going to have disagreements in any community when it gets large enough. I think the best way to safeguard against this kind of stuff happening is through education. The best way to ensure freedom is by educating your population. I think the more people speak about this stuff, the more people like you and I have these conversations and have these open discussions where people understand at least how we define these things. I think it's definitely going to make things clear and at least create more unity within this community. I mean, you can't have a community without common unity. And I think if we have more conversations and more understandings of how we perceive reality, it's only going to add towards creating a more solid community.
Yeah, it's fascinating too that I asked this question on Twitter a few weeks back too. And I asked can anybody give me an example in history where unity has taken place without violence, aggression, or bloodshed? Or extreme disruption, and not very many. And I'm talking about unification of nations, like large groups of people, right? Throughout history, a lot of unifications did not come peacefully. There were always some form of tension, conflict, or disruption, uncomfortable disruption. So I find that's why I look at everything that's happening within Bitcoin right now seems to be part of that same sort of narrative. I wish we could, achieve unification peacefully, but I have not seen or heard of any examples in the past where that has taken place. I mean, even if you look at, say, Gandhi and India gaining its independence, you could argue that was peaceful or non-violent action, but man, a lot of them got beat. There was violence involved, like they still were abused and whatnot.
Sure.
Yeah,
I think there's always going to be tribulations in order for people to achieve their rise to success, whether it's on an individual level or a community level. And I mean, even in regards to India, obviously the people there, they had to undergo indentured slavery, some form of injustice before they finally got Gandhi. So whereas I think we will obviously eventually, in my opinion, I think we will have Bitcoin Cash somewhere down the line, even if it's not Bitcoin Cash. I don't know. I truly believe that it's inevitable that we will see a separation of economics and state. That's what this thing is about to me. But it may take some hardship before we arrive at that.
Yes, agreed on that, man.
Well, George, I think we'll end it there, man. It's been an hour. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. You're a gentleman. You are a scholar, and I really appreciate you dropping those prophetic, preacher-like truth bombs, brother. So I would love to do this again sometime. I'll be sure to share this on the Twitter. And, bro, keep us up to date with anything that you got going on. I'd love to get involved. It's all about community, and that's what this podcast is all about.
Oh, nice, man. Yeah, keep up the good work yourself. I appreciated this talk. And for anyone that's listening as well, if you do want to get involved with the Bitcoin Cash Fund community, we kind of just have like our own little sub-community of doers within the Bitcoin Cash ecosystem. Just go to probably the best address is bchforeveryone.com. That one will take you straight to our Discord group. Sign up and you'll see all the other doers there.
Fantastic. Well, I got your Twitter @ here, so people get in touch with you. I'll put the links to your website and all that stuff after I've finished this podcast. But once again, George, you are absolutely amazing. Thank you for dropping those wisdomatic truth bombs. It's been a very enlightening conversation. And peace out, my brother. Peace out. God bless.
Peace out, my man.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. George Samuel's absolutely amazing conversation. That's what I like to do. I like to get into the philosophical aspects of things. There's always an underpinning to even the technological side of Bitcoin. Ladies and gentlemen, be sure to drop us some comments and let us know what you thought about this interview with George. And let us know if you have any suggestions to improve this podcast. If you want to come on, if you know anyone that would be good on this. I'd like to give a shout out to the Beach Boys. They have an amazing podcast. Highly recommend checking their stuff. They really go into the technological, philosophical details of Bitcoin Cash, yo. And Crypto Anarchist, another great dude I listen to. There are a lot of other great channels out there. Also, another great guy that's been making some amazing YouTube videos. I think it's Mr. Scatman. Makes some amazing promotional videos in favor of Bitcoin Cash. Highly recommend checking out his stuff. I've been using a lot of his material and making my own little videos. But anyway, without further ado, I'm going to end it here. Peace out, keep it real, don't drive and text. This is the Crucial Journey Podcast, a.k.a. the Esoteric Noetic, a.k.a. the Bitcoin MC. Until next time, yo. Boom shakalaka. Ow! Just ending it here with my promotional video. This is my music, yo. People in this life, they'll always tell you what you can and what you cannot do. You can't let nobody put limitations on yourself. You gotta know that deep down inside, you got the will, you got the power, you got the fire. So if you wanna go, you gotta go like thunder. Without the beats, you hold the motion. Bring out the rain, need no introduction. Have a moment, ponder on that weakness. Rise above it, keep working on that game, son. I'm a vibe to school, you and I thunder. I'm a ring, a groove, you know I got some. you the battle was over before the game was done. That if you think that I'm gonna let you run my body, my heart, and my mind, then you better listen, son. Oh, you think you're invaluable, yeah, act like you made of gold. Think you're gonna soar like a bird beyond impossible. I think it's plain to see, you know you're meant to be. Once to world serve too, gotta think and stop. What you want, it always what you get. You don't do the work that you won't find.